Hello, I'm Steve Buser, Professor Emeritus of Finance at the Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University, and I welcome you to the second in a series of discussions on the current state of the U.S. economy. Where we left off was there was a debate about whether or not we were actually in a recession. We decided that we were in a recession, but that it was not as severe as you might have thought based on discussions of the word financial crisis, and decided that perhaps the term financial crisis meant more to reflect risks rather than actualities. And so this topic we decided to discuss what are the risks, the financial risks to the economy as a whole, what's the source of those risks, and what's the potential impact on the economy as a whole. And as with any business cycle, there are many factors that could contribute to the story, but most would agree that a major factor has been the impact of a collapse in what had been a very long and growing bubble in housing values. Over the past several decades, the U.S. economy had grown increasingly dependent on borrowings as a means of financing its major purchases. And so the theme will be that this collapse of this major source of funding for the economy as a whole has led to severe problems. How did that happen? Well, over the last couple decades, the U.S. as a whole has grown increasingly reliant on debt finance. And not just for the purchase of housing and cars and other major purchases, but for everyday routine things. Large numbers of families depend on payday loans just to get through each month. In addition, large numbers of families rely on credit cards for their routine purchases. In fact, the typical households reported to carry unpaid credit card balances in excess of $10,000. And it's not just households that are increasingly dependent on debt. The federal government continues to issue debt at record levels to finance ever-growing needs. And businesses themselves, both large and small, have shifted from traditional measures of equity finance and long-term debt, which need not be repaid for long periods of time, and shifted to short-term debt, which must be rolled over at constant intervals. And so businesses, both large and small, governments, and even households are vulnerable to any disruption, however temporary, in the credit markets. So how did the housing market impact this all? Well, a couple of reasons. One, that as housing values declined, then the value of equity for homeowners declined. And as the value of the equity declined, then the backing for some of their second mortgages or home equity lines of credit evaporated. So an important source of credit dried up for households. As housing bubbles declined, or burst, we also saw that home construction dropped off, and households that lost their money cut back on expenditures. And that led to a cyclical downturn in the economy that has produced even more problems. For an extension of that topic, we'll save that for the next discussion.